Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening. Today is April 1st, 2025. Welcome to the Town of Woodfin Planning Board of Adjustment meeting. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I would also like to ask that everyone attending this meeting, please place your phones on silent so we do not disrupt this meeting. We have a lot of people tonight. And I'd like now to take roll to certify the board quorum. Before we do that, let me swear in our new member. Is that okay, Ricky, to do that first?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Mr. Vihan, does he have to come up to the podium? Should he come up to the podium?
It'd probably be good for you guys, y'all to stand up. That way he can raise his hand.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry. Yes. Let me say this. Let's see. Can you just please state your name and address?
Jerry Vihan, 21 Brown Avenue, Woodfin.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, congratulations. Welcome to
Thank you.
the board. Say something. Okay.
Yeah, did you have, we had the.
I didn't see that. Oh, I'm
Oh, you
sorry.
did see, yeah, you got
Should I do it again? Do this one?
Yeah, let's do that one.
All right.
That's one Gina.
Yeah, Jerry, we'll
Yeah,
officially do it. Sorry, we'll do this again. I have official one I didn't see. Okay. I, Jerry Vihan,
I, Jerry Vihan,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are or may be established
which are and may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of said state,
of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Planning Board of Adjustment member
as Planning Board of Adjustment member
for the town of Woodfin, so help me God.
for the town of Woodfin, so help me God.
Congratulations, it's official now.
Stringent than the president.
Okay. Okay, now we're going back to the, take roll. Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Mr. Valentine, Mr. Deroni, Mr. Hopkins,
Here.
Mr. Vihan,
Here.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mr. Hayes, present. Okay, so we do have 5.
You have quorum. And then we just have that one item of amending the agenda for tonight for that one item.
So we'd like to make an announcement that item E3, the Altura CZ request, has been continued to next month, May meeting, which is on May 6th, 2025. You will not be, if anyone's here for that, you will not be being notified again, correct?
Correct. So it will be at 6 p.m. in this room on May 6th. And so
Sorry, May 6th, did I say May 5th again?
you said no, you said May 6th. We just make sure everybody knows it at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. on May 6th. So if anybody is here for that one specifically and you don't want to wait, feel free, because that will not be being heard tonight. Next item on the minutes or on the agenda is to approve the minutes from January 7th. Has everybody on the board had a chance to review those minutes? And are there any questions or concerns? If not, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. That is approved unanimously. Okay, D, public comment.
Okay. All right. So for the public comment, if there should be a list, I think you may have had a couple signups. Public comment would be for general public items not related to a public hearing tonight. So if you had some other zoning questions, zoning issue, he'll recognize you. You can come up to the podium and speak. Typically, it's a 3-minute time limit, but outside of that, if you're actually signed up and want to speak for the Olivet Townhomes, we can hold off and let you speak at the time during that public hearing. Do you have a couple names on there for the public comment sheet, or was that left out from.
I have that.
Okay.
I have a Mr. Thomas. They still here?
Ryan,
Yes.
I'm going to speak to all of it.
Oh, okay. So we'll hold off on that one. And then a Mr. Petronic,
Same thing.
Olivet. Okay, so Ricky, these are all for Olivet.
Okay, so you don't have any public comment for general, so we'll keep on trucking through the agenda.
All right, so we'll close the meeting to the public comment for that. That'll take us to E, new business, legislative public hearing. We have a request for comprehensive update to chapter 14 of the town of Woodfin's flood damage prevention ordinances, which I will now turn over to Ricky.
Yeah, so I can do some talking now, I guess, for you. You're like, phew, let somebody else talk so you don't have to be right there at you. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, so chapter 14 in our code of ordinances is a separate chapter that is regulate flood damage prevention ordinance. So it's not part of our zoning code, which is probably good in light of some recent state legislation. So we're looking at, we had this on our radar, honestly, for a while of looking at the flood code before Helene. And I think as everybody lived through and seen what happened through Asheville, Buncombe County, Yancey County, what the power of water can do, and in places where even if you follow the flood regulations, it didn't matter if you were in a floodplain, you were in a floodplain, didn't know it. So I do have a graphic up here for everybody. So this is, I found this from actually the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. So our flood damage prevention ordinance will actually be regulating things within that FEMA 100-year floodplain. So you'll see there's a couple vertical lines. It's kind of that middle dash line. It's the 1% annual chance of a flood. And so this ordinance only applies to areas mapped by the FEMA as being within a regulated flood zone. Now, there's going to be streams and branches and waterways that don't have a map on them at all. That doesn't mean there's not a floodplain in reality, because we've seen little bitty creeks throughout the county flood homes with 5 and 6 feet of water. There were 5-10 miles from a floodplain that was mapped. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy flood insurance. It doesn't mean you're safe. It just means as far as a local government goes, we'll be looking at a little bit more scrutiny for construction and improvements within this regulated zone. So just kind of working through the graphic. So you have the channel on the bottom. That's your creek, your water body. And then the blue is kind of the flood event. And then we're talking about through tonight, the encroachment area, which is the flood fringe. That's the hatched. And that includes the floodway and the flood fringe, or the 1% chance. And then outside of that is what we call a 500-year floodplain. Those are sometimes coded as Zone X because they're out, but they're colored on the map. So anecdotally, what I've seen in Woodfin, we definitely had more than a 100-year 1% event. In some places, it seemed to kind of line up close to the 500-year map. Then there's other places in Asheville where it was feet above what a 500-year event would have been. So the geography and the flows and obstructions in the river will change this. So anyway, that's probably about as much everybody wants to look at floodplain.
On that real quick. The
Yeah.
Dark blue, you say channel.
That's the water. That's
That's
kind
the
of
normal water level?
that's the normal water level.
Okay.
And so I'll say an extra thing too. So if you fill in that encroachment area, see that kind of hatched area on each side, that's an area that if you were to fill in that area with dirt or some other fill, concrete, whatever, generally what happens is they model the floodway to increase 1 vertical foot. So the floodway should be able to handle an extra foot of water if you fill in that flood fringe zone.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll say this, when we looked at Woodfin's floodplain ordinance, it wasn't as far out of whack as maybe we thought it was. It seems like when we compared it to the newer model code, there was a lot of similarities to the model code that currently exists. So Shannon and I think Marie, we looked at it, I think, and Nate, it seems like there was Woodford had adopted a prior model code. And Jerry, you've had some time with the town. You may know that too. So we kind of were comparing that. And so looking at what we have today, right now we have a thing called a freeboard, which the current standard is 2 feet above BFE, which is base flood elevation. So if you construct a new building, the floor of that building must be 2 feet above what is that 1% chance annual flood. So we require that elevation. That's residential has to do that. Substantial improvement, and I can explain that. That's when you do work, improvements, renovations, repairs to the building that exceed 50% of the value of the building, not land, just the building. And so if you hit that threshold, then that calls full compliance. Then we have another term we call basically substantial improvement. We call it a look back period. So in any given time frame, if you do 50% of work, how far back do we look back in time cumulatively? Ours is the minimum, which is common in this area, is 1 year. So you do improvements this year, you finish up in July. If you wait a year after that CO and come back in August of 26, you can do another 45% improvement to the building. So you can do 45%, you're kind of 90-95. And we do allow fill in the flood fringe. So remember the hatched area. So you can backfill in that area to raise that building up 2 feet, or you can just elevate on pylons or piers like you commonly see at the beach. So that's what we have now. That's what was kind of the more substantial points we wanted to point out. What we're proposing, and this might be a discussion point for y'all, is we were proposing to change the freeboard standard from 2 feet to 4 feet. So an extra 2 feet to add. Maintain the substantial improvement threshold at 50%. That's very common. I think people look for that. It's easy to understand. However, we wanted to change the look back period from 1 year to 5 years. FEMA recommends anything from 3 years up to 10. We picked 5. So if you do 45% improvement, you'll have to wait 5 years to do another similar or equal type of work. Or a 10-year look back when it's related to a flood event. So if flood damage, if there was actually a flood event that caused damage to the building that required repairs, then we'd look back for the 10 prior years. So if there's been repetitive loss events due to flood, not just we're renovating, we're upgrading our fixtures, re-roofing just because it's time, but it's because the French Broad River come up twice and got your building, then you got a longer look back. So in essence, what happens is it's going to hit somebody harder that's being damaged repeatedly. Maybe the building they're in is too susceptible to flood damage and it's too much of a risk. That is, again, a business choice for somebody, but it's definitely hazardous when we have people living in those environments and they're sleeping at night. It can catch people off guard with our flash flooding, you know. And the other thing we talked about was to not allow fill within the flood fringe. The reason why is when you fill in, like I said, you backfill, put dirt in that, you're compressing that water into the floodway. It also kind of causes a back upstream to. If you have buildings more on pylons, then that volume area underneath the building is still available for water to flow in and through. The flood fringe usually doesn't have that direct force. It just kind of maybe backwater, but it can have objects. Again, everything's centered around a 1% chance flood event. Helene was not that. So if anything, any of those benefits here, we'd see the one that would help somebody would be that 4-foot freeboard. Again, places in Asheville had 9 feet above BFE, so it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't. One of our more readily visible examples was the French Broad River Academy for Boys next to the mill. They're at 2 foot above base flood, so they have the 2 foot of freeboard. The water literally come up to like inches It was right at the threshold of coming into the building. So their 2 foot of freeboard prevented a lot of damage to the building. They still had some repairs to do, but they didn't have that full catastrophic damage where the entire lower floor was inundated. So our idea is that, Helene didn't get it. So if there's another round of improvements to somebody, we go to 4.
Ricky, with the question of the freeboard.
Yep.
You're saying to the 4 foot to the floor, would that be to the base of the floor joist or actually to the floor?
Nuanced right now, I think we actually measure to the finished floor surface.
Uh-huh.
In the new code, we'd actually measure to the bottom of the lowest structural member of the floor. So that's another tweak. So that floor system would actually measure to the bottom of it instead of to the top of the surface. So that in of itself would bring up probably everything another 9 to 12 inches at least, depending on your floor structure.
Why wouldn't we increase that to, instead of 4, go to 5 or 6?
I think we looked at most of what FEMA had up. They recommend anything from 2 to 4 feet. I mean, I think there at some point, if you look at, we have the French Broad River as one floodplain, and Beaver Dam Creek is our other, and then what we call Weaverville Road Creek. It kind of goes up toward the fireplace. That's a mapped one. During Helene, we had water get into buildings, but nothing close to the close to entering any of the newly constructed buildings. So
if you're counting to the bottom of the floor joist, then you're taking away almost a foot of that 4, right? So
we're going to count. Right now we're counting to the top of the floor surface. We're actually going to count to the bottom. So we're going to push all the supporting out, adding.
So your floor might actually almost be 5 foot above.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the bottom of the structure, which is good because if that gets wet, it's bad anyway.
Yeah. So there could be insulation or wiring or something. So all improvements should be out of the flood. They call it the regulatory flood zone or regulatory flood elevation. So the BFE is what the base flood is based on the event, 1% event. And then our freeboard plus that is the regulatory flood protection elevation. So that might, like you said, Larry, it might wind up being 5 feet above that. I'll try not to talk about this forever. All right. So, other more like housekeeping, like I said, we had what appears to be a model code. So we just done more like updating some language, add a few definitions. So we updated the listed flood zones. That changes through times. We added some new and updated existing definitions. It's updating what's the regulatory agency. The state's changed from DEQ to DENR to DEQ. It's like some of that. Prohibit temperature controlled areas below the lowest floor. Prohibit the conversion of space below the lowest floor into habitable space at any future time. And then we added some standards for above ground tanks and other types of development involving chemicals and petro products. So it's, again, nothing wrong per se with our code. It's just silent. So we're adding those standards, provided some guidance. The goal is, I think the town would like to explore CRS, community rating system, to potentially get insurance discount points for policyholders that are participating in the federal flood insurance program. Right now, we're just baseline, and so those persons are paying whatever the full rate is. You can get up to like a 45% discount as you score points. It is very rigorous. I think the only community I found in our area that was participating in CRS was Asheville right now. So I didn't see any of the other small communities. We'll see what that's involved, but this would get us closer scoring points with these higher BFEs and stuff. Any questions? I know it's really dry, but maybe on everybody's radar a little bit more so after seeing what happened 6 months ago.
One other question is, if the government comes in and redoes maps, because I've heard that they're going to
Yes.
do that, ours will float and flow with the changes in the, we don't have to come back and rewrite our structure, correct?
No, we're going to work to make it where we'll automatically adopt the flood plain ordinance. Flood maps. This is more or less this. If you fall in that 1% chance zone, these are the rules you'll fall under. So if somebody is on Weaverville Road, like if you get up to if you go up past the fireplace, up Baird Cove is still in, but if you were to go up the creek across Baird Cove Road, you're on the creek. That 50 feet across the street is in a floodplain, but you're not on the other side. These rules don't apply. It doesn't mean you won't flood. And the one thing about having a BFE, the higher freeboard, is that it's kind of insurance for the builder of the property. Over time, everything is just going up. Flood elevations are just getting higher. And every time they do a remapping, and that's due to development uphill, upstream in Henderson County, Transylvania County, as more impervious surface is built, that water is coming to Woodfin through Buncombe County. It's incrementally going to catch up with these flood elevations. So it just buys that person some time before they may get struck. All right. So here's some considerations that are kind of cut both ways, so to speak. If you increase this freeboard standard, it can help protect future buildings from flood damage. It will also cause some existing buildings that are compliant today to be non-compliant. French Broad River School, the boys, they're 2 foot above. They'll now be non-conforming. We have a couple little small shopping centers on Weaverville Road. One's under construction. The other one's where the Lazy Tiger's at, the hostel. That's built 2 foot above base flood. It's compliant today. They'll be non-compliant. That said, they're already elevated. The likelihood that they will probably suffer damages from a flood event is probably already lesser. So there's like 4 or 5 buildings that we know of. The reciprocal of that is that we have a lot of buildings along Weaverville Road and the riverfront they're under some places 9 and 10 feet below that line. Commercial structures can wet flood proof. So they're already underwater 9, 10 feet. It's really not going to have any effect to them in that degree. It's not always practical to elevate existing structures. A lot of commercial structures on the riverfront, you're not going to be able to elevate those things 15 feet in the air. So it could increase the cost of building the floodplain, discouraging future development investment. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. Are we putting people in harm's way because of the flashy nature? There was some flashiness during a Helene pre-event that caught cars and people got hurt. And increase in look back period, that could limit some investment in the building. So there is some potentially tax-based implications in that. And there are exceptions for designated historic buildings. So if something is recognized, it can go through a variance process to this board to get that exception. And it's a pretty rigorous means test. Any questions? I know y'all probably flipped through it. I tried to provide you with the red lines. There's a lot of stuff in there, like literally some were capital, some things you were just changing the agency. Any thoughts on this? Questions?
I got, I'm curious, do y'all happen to know how many buildings this is going to affect in like the town?
Don't have the number offhand. We could probably work on getting that number if you want to get that.
But non-compliant isn't being required to do any changes, only if they.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
we're not forcing people to do this.
No, nobody's going to be forced to do anything to their structure. The only way they'd be required to do anything if they do work. And so, and this is as much as like, if you want to re-roof it, then we'll have to do they'll do a flood permit. If you want to put in new HVAC equipment, even if it's a mini split, they'll need a flood permit. So every little bit of work has to be tracked, and we have to retain those records forever. Currently, Buncombe County is managing our floodplain program for us. So the goal is, I think, hopefully the town will eventually take care of it. The county is with a lien, and even before then, they're really taxed for staff and the amount of floodplain. So we're hoping to do that.
Not a question. I was just going to make the comment that I thought you did a great job.
Yeah.
Yes, very much.
Going through, finding all of the bits and pieces, very comprehensive, very considered.
Yeah. I know I have to kind of Mike Valentine gave me some couple comments too. So, but he was just mostly about like some definitions and some maybe a formatting. So I'm going to go back through and look at one thing about that had italics that I'm going to maybe have to take out. So I know he had mentioned something about I had something italicized. So he did a very thorough review of that for me. So, Mike did. Anyway, so I'll just say this. I can bring up a flood map if you want to look at, but logistically, it's the French Broad River along by Silverline Park, by MSD is kind of the affected area. And then, like I said, Beaver Dam Creek from where the old Chandal lumber retail store used to be at, along Beaver Dam Creek, that part of the creek by the, I'm blanking out, down to Woodfin Avenue, North Woodfin Avenue under the bridge next to Grace Oil. That's part of that floodplain. And then up Weaverville Road, the creek that goes by the hot spot all the way up to the fireplace. That's all of floodplain. So the fireplace is about the last place, and the mini storage is about the last place on that end that we have as far as the extent of floodplain. There's nothing in New Stock area. There's not anything on Old Marshall Highway. There's not anything up at the top of the hill in that area. So those are kind of our three areas. There is a little bit in Olivet along Smith Mill Creek, but that's been preserved in that development as open space. So that developers avoided building in the floodplain down there. So there's no houses or commercial structures down there. So that one's a small area on the west of the river. Okay. With that, staff is recommending approval of it, but if unless y'all have more questions or need to chew on it, I think.
So anyone on the board have questions?
More questions?
Okay. Would someone besides our normal motion person, or would our normal motion person like to make it?
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the proposed amendment and find that it is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the Woodfin Together Comprehensive Plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request, 1, balances the supply of land for housing and employment and protects land for economic development and ensures an adequate supply of appropriately located and sized employment space. 2, makes government decision-making accessible and transparent to all residents while updating development standards to minimize risk from new development. And 3, protects floodplains, wetlands, wildlife habitat, and other environmentally valuable and sensitive areas by updating development standards to minimize the risk from new development and educating the public on risks and actions needed to protect themselves.
That's it.
I'm a second.
Second. Okay. That being said, Mr. Hanson,
Approve.
Mr. Valentine, Mr. Durney, Mr. Hopkins,
Approve.
Mr. Vihan,
Approve.
Mr. Young.
Approve.
I vote approve. So it is unanimously approved. Nice work. Planning.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You always make it so entertaining.
Yes.
I know. I really like floodplain
Nice
stuff.
presentation.
I know, but I like it. Sorry, I like the floodplain stuff. I'm learning more about it. It's my life. All right. So I think everybody's more interested in the second case tonight, the conditional zoning that we have.
Yes. So
I'll
number,
let I'll let you introduce it.
so number 2 is a request to conditionally rezone an 11.25 acre property located at 215 Macedonia Road and 9999 May Apple Bridge Road from Mountain Village to Mountain Village Conditional Zone, MVCZ. The properties are identified in Buncombe County tax records as portions of pins 9721-23-478, 9721-43-6677. The applicant is Red Tree Organization, LLC, on behalf of the property owners Bridges at French Broad, LLC, and Olivet Development, LLC.
Okay.
Ricky, go ahead, I'll let you go first. And open to the public first, or we want to have a presentation from the applicant?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll do kind of an introduction to and go over a little bit of my report and the exhibits, and then I'll get the applicant, and I think one of the property owners is here, the applicants are here. I'll let them answer any questions or add to maybe what I'm saying. I think at that point, we'll probably want to open up the public hearing because I think majority, if not everybody here tonight, wasn't here for floodplain, but for this project. And I think you have an extensive sign-in sheet on that. So we'll probably, some people did indicate to me that they may not speak, but they're here, but they, just in case. All right, so I'll get going here. This is on the west of the river. Speaking of the river, we're west of the river across the bridge. Olivet is kind of here in the center. You'll see there's a couple of nodes of neighborhoods here in the brighter green, Mint, Mountain Village. And then the upper left is the part of the open space for the development. And then the rolling hills of French Broad, a different subdivision on around the corner. And that's the end of Woodfin at this time. And then your areas kind of to the south that are kind of more of a gray tan, that is Buncombe County unincorporated area, and it's all open use zoning. So you're either a color, which is Woodfin, or that neutral, which is open use. Across the river is actually the Craggy Prison area, Buncombe County. That's the dark blue. And this area is all zoned Mountain Village. We just kind of colored that for.
So the light gray area where the subject is currently.
That's the southern parts. That's all Mountain Village. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So again, so back to our future land use map. You remember Woodfin Together from about 15 months ago. There's the comp plan has a future land use map. This entire area in Woodfin is designated as cluster residential, which is basically areas that we want to push development into certain nodes and preserve either creeks or floodplains or steep slopes by doing that. And so as you see, all that area has kind of happened. Like I mentioned, you center right, you see a stream, that's Smith Mill Creek, floodplain, and you notice the development is actually away from the creek itself, the floodplain. So that kind of meets the intent of staying out of areas of high hazard. So this is the aerial. You can see the prison top center. The grade area is the parcels in question. And then you can kind of see it's mostly a scattering of single family homes. There are, manufactured homes, double wide, single wides, a lot of stick built homes in this area. It's kind of transitioning when you go across the river. I mean, you kind of go south to get toward Irwin. It's kind of more suburban. This area, as you move north up Olivet, it starts to fade into more farms and fields and pastures. And then Olivet's one of those areas that's transitioning. And when you go past Olivet, Rolling Hills, it even becomes even that much more rural. So our actual site plan. So as you see, it's me and Marie talked. It's more of a weird avocado shape. It's probably hard to make out. But on the left part of the screen, that is the Westridge Farm. So if you've been into Olivet, you come in off Old Macedonia. There's like a row of homes on the ridge that goes north and terminates. It's probably about 20, 25 homes. And then in that kind of that bend in upper left, that's where there's kind of the farm area. And there's a kind of place for gathering for the neighborhood. And it's a dirt road at that point. And that's the future Olivet Parkway that will connect the west side of the development back to the east side that we've seen. There's a kind of an addressing line mapped through there. So I don't know, can anybody see like the dashed line? You see the purple lines? Purple lines represent the stormwater system. I think the green represent probably another utility like sewer. And I think the blue represents water, representing. And then you see gray boxes, which are the buildings. It's kind of a configuration of 2-unit buildings for townhomes up to, I think, as many as 4 or 5 units in a row. That's attached single family. So with townhomes, actual real property or the dirt underneath the unit would convey with the property when it's sold, as opposed to a condo where you just have like a division of ownership. So there would be land that goes.
In that map there, does it show the actual property boundaries of this project?
It's more of a gray area because, again, it's split in. I can back out here and let me just
Just trying to get a handle on what is their actual property, because
so I'll say it's not good. So top air here, my air is not doing. So you see like this dashed line right here? See the dashed line?
Mhm.
All All right, that is kind of the limits of grading. That's the 11.25. So that's the limit of this kind of neighborhood node. And it kind of comes up right here. That pickleball court that's actually out in this area is right up in here. And then there's, sorry, y'all, it's not my arrow, like wanting to pick it up.
So below to the left of your arrow and stuff, that's all included in the.
No, the top of there's like the plus arrow, which the purple area is actually, this is the edge of that. So my cursor's on top of it. The white cursor's on top of it.
I'm just trying to see, is there any open space land or trees?
Yeah. Yeah. Most of this area is kind of more intensely developed. They're including some open space that's have access with a trail and along this creek down in here is creek bed. And then the neighborhood has access to the overall Olivet amenities.
Repeat that last statement.
It's part of Olivet, so they'll have access to all the Olivet amenities, other walking trails, and access to whatever
And all of that green space.
green space in that development.
So it's one road in?
Right now, one road in, eventually the vision from the master plan that we had seen, which predates Marie and I, is that the Olivet Parkway will connect this side of the property to the, and I'll back up here. You can kind of see it better here. You see the Olivet Crossing Parkway in the center.
Yeah.
So that road alignment will eventually connect all the way through. You can actually drive through there on the dirt road. It's a definitely drivable, nice gravel road. They've just not paved it, I guess, for maintenance purposes.
But this project is going to complete and connect.
It won't completely connect at this time. It'll just extend a little bit more of that segment. So where you see Old Macedonia on the left, it will just kind of bring and extend it.
Well, I should say Olivet Parkway and Macedonia will connect to their new infrastructure they're building.
Yeah, they'll probably complete this part right here.
Okay.
That they're going to kind of do this part right in here. This will be paved. Sorry, I don't know why that other cursor's coming up, but right in here, that will extend the paved road.
But
'Cause
there's
it's
no-
also-
There's no expansion of the road to the right.
They're not going to pave. My understanding, they're not going to continue paving all the way through at this time. That may be other future phases or as part of the overall development. But today, we're looking at just this little section to be paved.
So back to the question I think Larry mentioned about one road in and out. Technically, there's only gonna be one paved.
Yeah,
road.
right now. Yeah, there'll be one road for this node between Westridge and this. There's only one
So in
exit,
theory,
right.
all traffic will be going to the
to the
east or to the west.
west, to the west right now. Yeah,
So we'll have 120 cars, probably.
potentially. Yeah.
You're figuring 2 cars per unit.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's kind of so you'll see there's like almost a north-south line through the development. That's kind of where these two parcels come together. I don't know if you see, it's kind of hard. There's some like gray line, but it runs kind of almost at a 11:30 to 5:30 kind of center right. That's the property line. So you see the majority or like 80% of the development's on. I think that's the Bridges at French Broad property, and then the Olivet Development's the right, LLC is on the right. And you can see the road. So keep on moving here. Back up, let's see. So just as an exhibit, they included some site plans. So there was one they describe as the uphill walk up. So just you drive up, you have to walk up to the unit. So this is like a typical illustrative elevation of it with driving garages. And then the downhill side of the road would be the walkout. So you pull up to the house and there's a walkout basement. This is just one example of what it looked like. Let me go back here. Included in the paved road will be sidewalks as part. So they're providing sidewalks on both sides of the street for the townhome section. They'll be doing street trees in here as well. That's required as part of a Mountain Village subdivision. One of those modifications is our maximum spacing on street trees is 60 feet. You're supposed to have one every 40 feet, but you can push and pull apart a little bit, and our max spacing 60 feet. They're requesting a modification of up to 85 feet just because of some planning rates and utilities. And according to the modification, they'll give us the 1 per 40. They'll just have some places that'll be a little bit further apart. And then the other modification is LED standards. You know, our code, lighting code's old. Hopefully we'll address that in the next year with the code update, but LED lighting. And then, of course, our lighting code still requires full cutoff fixtures for street lights. And then they're voluntarily doing dark sky compliant on everything else that's residential. And then as far as details, we'll review the stormwater of this project when it comes in for a detailed review. So it will have to comply with town stormwater.
Can you review the trees piece again? I heard and I
So
saw
we have
some
to have
questioning looks out here. I know
Yep.
it's supposed to be 60. They're
Yep.
asking for 85, but then you
It's-
brought in the
it's- so,
40.
so you have to have a tree, so 1 per every 40 feet. So the rate, so if it's 200 feet, divide that by 40, that's 5 trees. And then the spacing, there's the maximum space between the tree is 60 feet. So there's a minimum and a maximum. So you got to have 5 trees. You can make one up 60 feet apart. They're asking to stretch the slinky a little bit further to 85. So, but we're still going to get 5 in that rate. So we'll still get the trees that we're supposed to get. It's just that pattern, the repetition of the pattern.
Is that only to take care of easements?
I think it was, my understanding was to work around some utilities and easements because there's water, sewer, and power line in this area. So
And Ricky, I'm still a little confused. I see your your dash mark around
Yeah.
construction area, but that's not the property line, correct?
no, that is because there's only 2 properties here. It's part of a 100 and 200 acre tract.
I'm just trying to
So
figure
this is
out
a
what
portion.
is this project, where do they actually own the property? It's not the whole big gray thing.
There's 2 property owners that own the 2 big pieces of gray, and this applicant is developing this little bitty neighborhood node out of those pieces.
Okay, so
Stretches across
this is
both.
all the
Stretch-
property. Oh, so they are going to have a lot of open or
Yeah.
untouched space. I thought the hash marks was their property line.
That's just the only area that's being rezoned. It's
Okay.
just this, that dashed area is 11.25 acres. That's the only area being rezoned out of this probably cumulative 300 acres.
Okay,
This 11.25 acre tract is the only thing being rezoned to Mountain Village conditional zoning. And it would be this kind of road layout and this kind of building townhome layout. So if you wanted to change this to apartments, you couldn't. If you wanted to change the road and go out through to the south to another subdivision to the south, you couldn't do it because it'd be a substantial change, have to come back. But it's a kind of a tight grading area.
This would be all underground utilities?
We'll probably need to ask the developer that one. That's what I've seen in all of it, but I can't answer that. All right. So Scott's saying yes. That's what I've seen out there so far. That's what I expect. All right, so I'm probably going to stop here, and we'll get, is it Scott Austin and Brandon, what's your last name? Bryant. I'll invite them up for y'all to answer any of y'all's questions, unless you have something else for me. But I think they're probably going to be able to answer some of your more particular questions about the project. And then I can come back up and answer follow-up before we open the public hearing. Is that good? Good with y'all? Okay.
we don't have to swear them in, correct?
No, this is not, it's all legislative, so there's no swearing in, no
But
swearing.
I would ask if you could each please state your name, address, and who you represent, so it's on the record.
My name is Scott Austin. I represent Olivet Riverside Community and Farm and Olivet Development LLC. I'm one of the owners along with Allison Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want an address too? Is that what you said?
Just,
I'm Brandon Bryant, representing Red Tree Organization. I'm the builder out of this,
okay.
developer.
We are sitting on 411 acres. When we bought the property, we came in October of 2014 with the expectation of building a large development around a farm, where the idea is to know your neighbor, to have front door access, rear door trails. We have added on about 58 acres since we purchased the property in 14 towards the Blankenship and out towards Olivet Road. So this area is a small portion on the western side by our farm that is surrounded by considerable amount of open space, trails, creeks, and obviously Lee Creek and the river. This is for 62 units. We're more or less flip-flopping what we had shown on the plan previously. We had units sitting where the farm currently lives. And when we ended up doing the farm in its current location, because it had just better soils and a better place to put our farm, we flopped it to this side. Excuse me. We have been building individual lots, platting them ourselves over the last 10 years, selling them to homeowners and letting those folks find their own builders through their own architectural plans and building out the homes. The intention when we bought it was to stick around, was to not to be a developer that sold it and took off. And to do that, we have built our roads to DOT specs. We have provided appropriate right-of-ways and worked with the town. And the town has then taken over the roads. We were at a 35-foot right-of-way previously. We're now in 45 everywhere we go in this particular plan. All of our utilities are buried, and we have worked with MSD since 2015 and have buried over a little over 14,000 feet of pipe at an average depth of about 21 feet all the way through the development. So we have about $12 million in sewer alone, with the anticipation of building this community out in a slower fashion than most folks do. So as we have seen COVID, as we have seen Helene, as we have seen the last 10 years, when we bought Olivet, the average price to build was $185 a square foot. As we know, that's considerably higher now. Our goal to have somewhat of an economic stratification through our development, meaning different price levels, being able to attract younger families in particular now where we are. Townhomes make the most sense where we're headed. We're trying to stretch out who is coming into Olivet and also add to the base for what we can accomplish on the farm. Who's helping out at the farm, who's shopping in the area, who's there for farm to table dinners, who's showing up for the stuff that we're trying to create. So we've now pivoted, which was always our intention, from selling individual lots to homeowners in our single family model to move into the developer model where we're actually working with builders. This will allow us to grow at a faster pace. It will allow us to have our arms around the construction process a lot more cleanly than we do currently. As you can imagine, when you've got 130 homes with different builders and different owners and different architects, it gets crowded, it gets noisy, it gets all the above. So the intent as we continue to grow is to soften the way we build, to soften what we're doing and make it more uniform throughout the community. We've got, you may not be able to see it on your side, but well, on your side, it's, you know, this area between here and here, and for you folks out here, it's between here and here. That will end up being a shared development. So the builder is not buying that area, but we've currently got a metal building and infrastructure ready for what we're considering to be kind of our community house. We're big enough now, and these folks know as much as anybody, we need a place to sit and talk and have meetings and have gatherings and have events. We've, so Brandon's group will be coming in and they would build that amenity out for the entire community. It would be a shared amenity for everybody. And then on this particular parcel, they're showing underground detention because we're close to a creek bed for some of this storm. And I don't really see that there's anything else we can do that hasn't been asked of us to make sure that we're protecting our surrounding environment. That's always been critical for us. The idea of one way in, one way out from a parking perspective or driveway perspective, I would love to pave all of that crossing all the way across right now, but it's just not an economic practicality at the moment. When we came through with Mr. Vihan at the time and Jason Young at the time, we said point blank, we're going to have to modify our plan as we move forward. It's a big plan, and we're doing it from a grassroots perspective. We're not coming in here with $50 million and throwing it at it day one. So I would love to pave that. This does contemplating paving when they finish phase 3. on a flat area around a bend, but it certainly doesn't get us from this end all the way to the other end of Olivet. And really what's going to happen along that road as we continue to develop, that road grade's going to change. We're really on a dragon's back going all the way across that spine. So we're going to end up taking that road up or down 3, 4, 5 feet as we come and individually parcel these things out as we move across. So right now it is a gravel road that connects 2 paved areas that gets used by everybody. It is a passable road. It is compacted. It does not have ruts, and commercial construction and residential traffic travels it daily. This area in particular, the way that it's being developed, will have a laydown area, a lot more areas. What we've had in phase 1, 2, and 3 right now is parking for the individual houses for construction is always challenging as well, because you've got framing crews and utilities, you name it. And they're parking on the side of the road because that's about all we have, particularly with our steep areas dropping off to some of the homes. This area will give us a lot more flat ground. The lower part that sits down will be in really what's phase 2.5 to 3. So that flat area will more or less be a lay down and parking field that will really protect this section coming through and slow that traffic down as well. And the intent is just to add to our backdoor type of environment where you can hop out of this and get right on the trail. You're right towards the amenities. We can have and continue that type of hamlet style development that was really from the Shires, is really where we're coming from, the European way of developing. And happy to answer any additional questions. We're working with Brandon Bryant, who's really been with us since day one from a construction standpoint. We're watched their company grow and really proud of what they're putting out in the world. They're coming in with a unified plan. They've worked really hard to get these to feel like they're a piece of the existing development just being stretched down into the next component of what we're trying to accomplish. Believe that we can get it done efficiently, quickly, and continue to add to what is already really what I consider to be a remarkable development.
When all said and done and the whole thing's developed, how large will it be? How many homes?
Ooh, excuse me. That's an interesting question. Right now, we're close to 400 on the original master plan with the additional. I suspect we'll probably add at least another 200 or 300 when it's all said and done, based on where we are market conditions at minimum.
600 to 700.
Yes, sir.
My real question is, what's the timeline on this particular project? Or do you have a timeline?
We're hoping to break ground in May.
Okay.
Yeah, so plans are just about done. I'll let him speak to that more so, but getting in front of the town for water and sewer, getting with the engineers and getting our plans ready to go. We're shovel ready. We'll be shovel ready.
I'm assuming Woodford Water District will handle the water.
Yes, sir. And we have allocation letters from everybody for those as well, or they're actually out for signature. But yes, we do have allocation for water, sewer, and power.
And these are all condos?
Townhomes.
Townhomes? Okay,
Yes, sir.
townhomes. So, okay, so in that case, get this right. So townhomes, they own the land?
Correct.
The owner owns the land. Okay.
That's right.
And I guess, let's see.
0.06 acres.
Okay, so just, and I'm not holding anybody to this, just an idea of ballpark price range as we're doing this, these homes?
I'll let him speak to that.
Yeah, so we're working through pricing, but our goal is, this is a little bit of that missing middle study of townhomes, and you see that nationally. All of that, and I think Scott talked about what it originally was doing. I have not seen a resale that sold our current house less than $1 million. We're aiming to be in the 800,000 range, 1,800 to 2,300 square feet with solar. Yeah.
So I take it that doesn't do anything for affordable housing.
For the community, Olivet, it would be definitely affordable, but for 300,000, I don't know what affordable. I asked Randy a couple months ago how he defined it.
I'd be happy if we got down to 400 for affordable.
Yeah, I don't think for this infrastructure and what we're looking for, but we are going for the sustainability aspect, which I know is part of your comprehensive plan. That sustainability part will definitely be hidden. And there is designated green space within that, which is hard to see, and I could try to do it as well. This section right in here, there's this little island over here, and then this section over here, which, you know, would be for everybody in here, this section, and the island here, and then this section right here.
None of it's in the, steep slope area though, right?
No, sir.
And no other amenities being built? I know you mentioned a building, activity building, whatever you want to call it. That's future.
No, that's actually part of this first phase.
Phase,
Yes, sir.
okay.
So you'll see the building being modified, pickleball courts, athletic courts being tucked in, as well as dog park, playground facility, and open green spaces as part of this.
And they're not shown on this map, correct?
I don't believe we're showing them on this plan because it wasn't part of these
Okay.
submittals, if I'm not mistaken. Not to mention, I think a portion of those are actually on land that we already own, that we're doing per a shared development agreement. But to that point, we're trying to add that amenity structure that we're actually lacking right now. We need more places for people to gather, more things to do that are actually planned. And when we started Olivet, the idea was really to blend summer camp and retirement communities where it's programmed. You know, you wake up, you've got something to do. You've got a cruise director, you've got somebody planning it. And the sooner we can get gravity, the sooner we can get more folks on site, the more we can hold true to that mission.
Do you plan one or two buildings at a time, or are you gonna do multiple buildings at a time?
Yeah, we would do, so if you look to your left and kind of go where the farm is over there to the left side, which would be on, yeah, of course, your left side. We'll start with the 5-unit, and then as market dictates, so it does for economic purposes, it makes sense for us to start doing structures. We'll call them doors, a 5-unit door complex or unit. So we would be doing multiple at one time. And kind of to answer your question, time frame, getting started soon. We'll see where the conditions are. We're being innovative about how we want to approach this. And I think it would be somewhere between a 3 to 5 year build out. Ideally, again,
For this project, right?
for this project. Yeah.
Do most of your building supplies come domestically, or are you tied into any offshore?
I'm not tied in with any Chinese.
By tariffs?
You can't get away from tariffs and home building. It's just the economics. I mean, even Canada, that's where 40% of our lumber comes from Canada. We are looking at other ways of trying to build these that take some efficiency into it. Yeah. But yeah, is everyone in the home building industry definitely is affected by tariffs. Even from your appliances, hot water heater just went up 10 to 20%. And no tariff is actually on that. That's just because manufacturers can do it. Same thing that happened during COVID.
I know I'm not part of them, too.
Excuse me. Go ahead. You have to wait.
That's my wife.
No, I get it.
We will
I
get
love
to
you,
the
Joe.
open discussion shortly. Board members, more questions for the applicants at this point?
I don't have any questions.
Do we, Ricky, can we come back to them if we have more questions after the open? Okay. So we not have, since we do not have any more questions from the board at the moment, do we want to have them stay up here to be able to answer questions? Or we're not answering questions from the public. We're just going to hear public comments, correct?
So what we'll do is when you open the public hearing, we can let the public ask questions, and I think, or make comments, but everybody should be directing it to y'all.
Mhm.
And then based on if it's the same kind of theme, then if they either want to answer the general theme of questions, but there's no way that we can have them up here and everybody standing, have this debate back and forth here. So you can go down through the list and call them up, and we'll go one by one. But it may be that we just kind of go through the theme. If y'all want to make notes, or I can try to make some notes here. I'm sure the development team will probably be taking cues, and we can call them back up toward the end, or I might have to be answering some questions. So some of the questions might be for me as well.
Okay.
And then we can do that.
And then just for clarity, everyone that's going to come up, we're going to give them a maximum of 3-minute time limit. They're going to,
You could, yes, if you want to limit that.
we'll take it,
See how it goes.
see how it goes. And they're going to be discussing everything and directing it to us, not to the applicant. And
Yeah.
then when it all said and done, once all the public comment is done, then we will bring the applicant back up and Ricky back up
If you
if we
feel
feel
like
necessary
that,
to
if you
answer
feel-
questions.
yeah, and they
So-
may want to back up. Yeah.
Just so we're clear, so the public is not going to be addressing the applicant directly. So I don't want any issues. Okay, so let's, at this point, we're going to open up the meeting for public comment.
Do you want a timekeeper?
Yeah, we're trying to wing it. I'm not going to hold it for a second, but
Okay.
I'm going to start from the top and go down the list.
Yeah, that's what I would do, and we'll just have everybody come up here to the.
And I will apologize if I don't pronounce the names correctly. Try my best. David Schamp? Scump, okay. Can you please state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Yes. My name's David Scomp. I moved onto a lot on Olivet Road 20 years ago. I own a 16-acre lot adjacent to the Olivet development, next to their main entrance. And when I moved to this area, my traffic since then has quadrupled or more from the amount of traffic coming in through there. As he was saying before, this whole side of the river is a very rural area. We're very proud of our farmlands, our pastures, and our open spaces. And it does not lend to multifamily units or housing density of this level on that side of the road. It just doesn't fit into the existing landscape. And I would much rather see developments like this where they put townhomes, maybe duplexes, multifamily units or whatever, in a more urban environment like there is on the other side of the river. It just does not fit everything that's in that whole side of town is meant for and is designed around. It's just too dense. Even where they have it, to my limits, even where they have the units, the single family units on River Run, I mean, they're so close together, you can literally almost pass stuff from one house to the other. I mean, I remind the old Grey Poupon commercials where they reach out the window and hand it to their neighbor. That's what I feel like we're getting towards over here. And that just is not what I moved into this area for. I moved from New Jersey and I was moving away from this stuff. I lived in a townhome on 1/4 acre and I couldn't even throw a Frisbee for my dog in my yard. And I moved to this area where now I got 16 acres where I've got plenty of room to let my animals roam. I'm just not ready for this in this area. I moved to get away from this stuff. I'm just not ready to move back into it. Thank you.
Helene Ryan?
Oh, that, I must have,
Okay, so you're not one, okay. Oh, tough one. Tom Kimball?
Kimball?
Do we have Tom Kimball?
That was just to sign it, not to speak.
Oh, okay. Julie, so same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Blaze,
Yeah, again, I think you're reading from
That's
what we thought was just the sign-in sheet,
okay,
not the speaker sheet.
this was,
So we don't have a sign-in sheet, so.
So-
You can only sign in if you wanted to speak.
I mean, this one was, we're done with this one, so we're gonna consider this one.
Except this was
Well,
really,
wants to speak, maybe it would be
Okay.
easier. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Well, I know that there was a Thomas Ryan and Richard
They all
Petronic that
signed
was.
in just to be
I'm ready
here.
to speak as well.
That was so kind.
So besides those two people, is there anyone else that is on this big list that wants to speak? Let's knock it out that way. Okay, okay. And then you. If you could please come up, state your name and address, and we'll take it this way.
My name's Rick Feld. I'm at 23 B Bomb Way in Olivet. And I don't really want to take up your time, but I just had a question of clarification to throw out on this. As soon as I knew this was coming, I called, and from the city folks were real nice and they emailed me all the documentation. And I don't know whether it was a clerical error or whatever, but the clarification I'm looking for is on these, which are awesome. Thank you. I got all these, but there's one document called development data, and this and that matches. It's 11.25 acres and it's 61 units. on this development data, which I didn't see on the display, it says PIN number, property size, 1125, Town of Woodfin, erosion control, blah, blah, blah. And then it says proposed number of units, 300. So I don't know whether that was a differential or a clerical level or whatever, but I just wanted to throw it out and find out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, anyone else that wanted to speak?
So I thought that was just an error. I thought that was just simply an error.
Yeah, if there's anybody else to speak, I can then answer any questions.
Yeah, we still have some more people speak.
Yes, I said, I'll wait till you get done with everybody. I can answer.
Okay, the gentleman in the back on the right, gray shirt. Please. If you could speak your name and state your address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is John O'Star. I live on 52 Old Macedonia Road, so to the west of this proposed development. I wanted to draw a concern to the one road in and out, particularly for the residents of the unincorporated Alexander area. There's a lot of traffic and heavy trucks and road erosion. So just bringing the concern to it, I'm not going to speak to the development itself. I'm a proud neighbor of the development. However, the traffic and we call it the parade of dump trucks is it's quite a lot, and it's a heavy wear and tear on the road. So my biggest concern is for the residents on that side of Woodfin that would fall into Alexander. There's road damage on that whole side of the road just because of increased heavy trucks. So if there's any way that Woodfin can consider that and help maintain those roads, or at least have that be a part of their consideration when they're considering all this increased traffic, I'd appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Gentleman in the blue.
Excuse my voice, I have a little bit of hoarseness, but I'm Blaise DeFranco. I live at 23 Olivet Crossing Parkway. And I just want to add on to the John's comment. Right now, there are two main accesses to Olivet. One is near where he lives on Macedonia Road, and the other is what we consider to be the main entrance to the development, which I think now we call French Broad Crossing. And if you come in that way, there are two bridges that are part of our community that go over Lee Creek. Is that what they cross? And those bridges now are, the floor of those bridges, I guess, are like 2x6s in a row. And even now, the traffic that comes in and out, even just cars, but particularly trucks, it really concerns me that those bridges are going to be damaged by continued truck traffic. And if, in sort of respect for the people that live on the other side, if all of the traffic is coming in over there, of course, that's a concern for people that live on that side. For people that live in the front side of the neighborhood, so to speak, I think those bridges are really a concern. And of course, it's a concern for the entire neighborhood because that's the only way to get across that creek. And much of our existing homes are subject to or dependent upon getting in and out using those bridges. So, if we sort of worry about traffic on one end, it could create an increase on traffic on the original end and have a negative effect on those bridges now. So I just wanted to throw that in since we were talking about access to either end of the property. So thank you.
Thank you. believe we had a gentleman in a gray shirt or was there anybody else?
I signed up, actually.
Okay,
Thomas Ryan.
can you kind of speak at the podium to the microphone, please?
Thomas Ryan, 216 Westridge Farm Road. I'd like to just show you here what my concern is. So right now, this is a dirt road. No one's gonna go that way. So everybody's going down Old Macedonia Road, and that's what John was talking about. So at one point, there was a Montessori school, and there would be 10 or 15 cars coming rapidly up here, and I'd be walking my dog. And on a foggy morning, it was really dangerous. So they actually put up a stop sign.
Sir, can you come back to the podium so we can pick you up too?
They actually put up a stop sign to try to slow the traffic down. So I'm just concerned, if you have, like Larry set up on the board, if you have 120 cars coming out and coming back every day, that's a lot of traffic for this road, which bends and also goes up and down twice. I know it well from walking it. And it's going to be a hazard. So I think you might want to consider maybe speed bumps or something to slow the traffic down and make sure the people either entering the road or walking on the road are not going to be harmed. So that's my thing.
All right, thank you. Next, who would like to come up next? The man in the red shirt. Please.
Hi, my name is Richard Petronic. I live at 30 Tulip Poplar. This is a question for the developer. The homes that currently exist all have geothermal and are subject to a minimum HERS rating of 55%. And I think a lot of the people built in the community because they wanted a community with a low carbon footprint. And I'm just wondering if either of those is feasible under the existing plan to expand, or how they're going to try to handle that.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak tonight? The lady in the striped shirt, you wanted to speak earlier? Do you want to?
It was asked.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to come up and speak? Because we're going to close this portion to the public. Okay, with no one else, we will now close this.
I wouldn't close it just yet because we're going to have,
Just for public?
no, because if you want to talk to Scott or.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Before you did, sorry.
So Ricky, do you want to come up first or do you want to?
Yeah, I might have a shorter answer.
So yeah, there is on this plan, there's a data block in the lower left, and it mentions 300. There is a unit count of 300. We'll get that fixed with the developers team. The site plan has 61 units. The conditions in Exhibit D, the written conditions say 61 townhome units. That would be the controlling ordinance document. And then I had a small little typo in my technical report that one of the community members let me know about before tonight. So I appreciate Melanie if she's here. Thanks for calling. So we got that fixed as well. But
max 61.
61. So this configuration, and in the Exhibit D, it says 61 units, townhome units. So regardless, there's a slight little error in a data box, the site plan layout and the Exhibit D conditions will control. But we'll make sure we get that buttoned up before council.
I have a couple of questions before you sit back down again.
Okay.
Based upon what public input was.
Okay.
Is a traffic study required for this development?
Not this time, no, because we require one at 1,000 trips per day.
Okay.
And which I'm not a traffic engineer. You typically assign it's somewhere about, you'll correct me, it's somewhere like 10.2 trips per day. I know you're not a traffic engineer.
Depends a lot on
Use, but usually single family, usually multifamilies around, I usually say about 10 units per acre. It's like 9.8 for multifamily, like 10.2 for single family. So at 61, that would be about 610, 630 trips a day. A trip is you go out, that's a trip. You come back home, that's a trip. So most of us, if one of us got a spouse or another person in the house, 2 cars leave, 2 cars come home from work. That's 4 trips. You go to the grocery store, come back, or potentially UPS makes a delivery, comes in, goes out. That's what's kind of attributed to traffic. So that's a very quick and dirty explanation. So no, we didn't require that, but yeah. So we had one for the other one though.
Well, why wouldn't you include trips? for
Excuse me.
existing homes?
Yeah.
We can't bring that
Yeah.
discussion up now. Based upon a question brought up about bridge damage, and I'm not familiar exactly with bridges, are they a township-owned and maintained bridges, or they are privately owned
The
bridges?
developer, Scott, correct me, I think the town doesn't maintain the bridges. There's a large number of streets in the neighborhood. The town maintains the hard surface, the paved surface. But as part of the taking over the streets, the town did not take over maintenance for the 2 bridges structures themselves.
So that would be on the development themselves.
Yeah.
And then on HOA.
Nature.
Okay. And the Echo building, I'll ask the builders.
Yep.
And
So not on the development? Who has the bridges
That
responsibility?
would be the property owners association would be that. It's the developer initially, but whenever they start turning things over, it eventually becomes the POA's
So
responsibility.
we have anything concerning road damage where the developer would take care of that at the end of the project?
Well, typically like in this section, they won't build the road itself. And if we can observe road damage, like if somebody would go out and cuts the road or there's like visible damage as part of the development, then we'll ask them to repair that damage attributed to that. Most of the time what you see is roads get built and then somebody comes back and starts doing work in front of that house. And there's usually cuts or scarring related to dumpster drops off and deliveries that does most of that damage that's directly attributed to that work. But like anything on around Old Macedonia Road where it's already public, then I say it's hard to attribute directly if the truck traffic is related to somebody else building on West Ridge that's previously platted, if it's utility work. So I can't really answer that fully, but in this case, if we know that a developer or a builder is causing damage to our street in front of the house, and we know that's what it come from, then we'd ask them to fix that. But in this case, that's a dirt road, so there's no hard pavement, and we'll wait till it's substantially complete before we'll take it. I think we're like about 90% of homes need to be constructed before the town council will entertain a petition for acceptance. So it has to be substantially completed, not just because there's asphalt, we'll take it. Yep.
What the intention is as far as paving the road, when do you anticipate doing that?
Stand up.
We're gonna call the builder back up.
Yeah, they'll call them back.
We'll call the
Yeah.
builder back up.
So as part of I'll just explain this. If you want to plat these lots, we'll have to have a bond. And a lot of times you'll see either the sub base or like a tack coat go down, but they'll have to bond with the town any outstanding infrastructure like the asphalt, the stormwater, landscaping, stormwater systems, anything to make it a functioning development will have to be bonded with us, and we'll hold that financial guarantee in our office before we'll let them record those lots. So if they've done 80% of that work, or they built all the sewer, they don't have to guarantee that with us. But anything's outstanding. So like in pavement, if Scott's put in the curb and gutter, or if he's put in the tack coat and we're only doing a final top coat of asphalt, then he would bond that with us. And we would hold that and check in with every year to make sure we don't have a cost escalation on asphalt because of petroleum. So we'll check in. So we've got a calendar, we've got a process in place, but that would be done before we'd ever record the first lot. I know it's a lot of extra you probably didn't know, but Kenny, did you have one?
No, I thought maybe there might be a clarifying statement to just like add potentially the ways that roads are owned in North Carolina, that there's the private, the town, and then the state.
Yeah. So
clarifying that.
Yeah. So in North Carolina, almost no county roads. You know, a lot of states, North Carolina's exception, we have the second largest really state highway system in the country after Texas. So you don't see no county roads. So you'll see public roads like Olivet, Old Macedonia, Elk Mountain. Those are state roads. And then there's either the local government, municipality. So Jonestown is our street. They're scattered out. So a lot of your smaller secondary roads in a municipal area will be a town maintenance road. And we get some funds for the state through PAL bill for that. That said, like I said, if the developers can offer on the plat this to us as a public, so he's going to indicate to us verbally, he's going to make it a public road. He'll meet the public standard. Then he'll have to be built and offered and petitioned to town council to accept that. So he can offer it to town council. They can refuse that. If they were to refuse it, it stays private and the Private Property Owners Association would maintain that. However, the road still has to be built to town public standards, which is basically a state standard. So in any case, we don't have a standard where private roads are substandard and public roads are superior. They're the same. So at the end, even if the POA wound up with the road for some reason, they're still getting the equivalent that through roads like this have a higher chance of being accepted. I can't guarantee that because I am not a town council member, but we've historically accepted stuff that is through streets and have a more of a public benefit as to opposed to very narrow, short little 300-foot dead-end streets with two homes.
And if it was to happen to stay in the POA's responsibility, does the township have any control over saying thou shall fix this and this, or that's all? It's all.
The only thing the town would be involved about ongoing maintenance would be on the stormwater system.
Okay.
Because stormwater system we're required by federal state law.
Okay.
Or the last resort. All right. Is that
Anybody else for Ricky? Questions for Ricky?
all right? So I know there's a couple questions I know that the developer definitely needs to answer because I don't know that knowledge.
Okay. So we have the developer come back up again, please. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ricky.
What questions might you have?
So I'll start from the bottom of my list. This question about the Echo building, and I didn't write all the words down exactly. I guess,
Geothermal.
yeah, geothermal. I did not hear that or see that in any of your plans, so I'm assuming that's not happening.
No, in this particular location. So when we started Olivet, the intention for a neutral carbon footprint or as small of a carbon footprint as possible, as well as audio shed for us is what you hear, not having cycling units coming on and off. Not to mention just quality and comfort we found from a geothermal, and still stand beside the fact that we love it. We think it's the best way to go. When you get to a product that gets small, particularly where we've gone in pricing in the last 5 years, it's just gotten absolutely impossible to have that type of a system in something that is less than $1 million and really make it a practical cost to the development. So we've tried to look at, in particular in this location, what does attainability look like for Olivet versus affordability? And then also what does sustainability look like and durability moving forward? Sustainability was a buzzword previously, and now it seems like it's moving into the new buzzword, if you will. But you look at solar and what we're trying to accomplish here, instead of the geothermal, having solar and power walls on these particular units and looking to reduce our carbon footprint, and having SEER rated units that bring us into that same type of environmental impact, as well as for me, what I don't want to hear are these cycling of these units in and out. So now we're working on where the placement of those units will be, how we can shield them, and then how we can actually potentially be North Carolina's first net positive development done inside of a community. And so we're working with Brandon and his team right now to do that through solar and power walls and actually adding back to the grid.
So no on the geothermal, but it sounds like you're doing the best you can to try to make it quiet and aesthetically pleasing.
And environmentally friendly as best we can. Yes, sir.
I think the SEER rate is 15 now for HVAC units. Is that where you'll be?
We can definitely be inside of that. We're trying to do better. It's just a function of cost at this point and what we can deliver and what it's going to cost as an add-on to the units. So yeah, we will.
The state actually came in and they upped their standards finally.
Yeah.
15.
And to speak to their point about it, it's probably outside of this conversation because it's legal documents within our rules and regulations and restrictions. But to build to a HERS home energy rating of 55 or below, when we looked at LEED and green certification and all these different entities that were more or less a pay-to-play type of organization, we told the builders, listen, go out there and build to a home energy rating, a blow door count of less than 55. Penetrations, insulations, everything that you really want to have a comfortable house that circulates air properly in the right amount of times per hour, in the right hour and per volume per hour. Still maintaining those same levels of quality. We're just needing to use a different tool to get to that same spot as well.
I'm assuming you do 2x6 exterior walls with R19 insulation
Yes, sir.
or 38 sills. Probably did 45. 45.
It will be a very well-built product. It will be very well insulated, and it will hold that air and circulate that air
The
properly.
HERS score on these houses should be 0 or a negative.
We have to have it on the microphone.
Yeah, so the HERS score right now is negative or 55 or below. So we will be, as net positive community, we'd have to be -1 or continue to be negative numbers. So we'll actually, from an energy performance standpoint, be better than what the current standard is.
With regards to roads, I think that was a big one, might be the next question. Something I'm very proud of, if you look at Helene and you look at other subdivisions that have come in with us, before us, after us, the amount of road damage that they had, the amount of HOA dollars that they're having to spend for their roads is significant. Their impact in and out of their developments is significant. We had 0 disruption to our road system during Helene. We build the roads to NCDOT quality. We have them inspected. We have a full base put down, and then we actually put binder before we come back and put a topping. My previous background is commercial development. I got out of commercial development because I can't stand these rooms. And I don't mean that rude. I just got tired of fighting for something that nobody wanted. It was soul sucking and I didn't enjoy it. So when you start something like Olivet, your goal is to say, this is an agricultural community built around a farm. We're going to build something that everybody wants and you can't have a problem with. Well, there's always going to be somebody that has a different opinion on what we're trying to accomplish. But we build things with as best quality as we can. We stand by it. We're still here. And we found that if you put in your roads early, if you get that binder down, then you can really protect those roads during construction. And then you come in and you put that last piece of asphalt, that 1.5 inches at the very end, and try to keep those roads in the best shape you possibly can during construction, because there is a lot of traffic. And yeah, we do have limited access to all of that, but that hasn't changed since we bought the property, brought it in and had it zoned to begin with and started this development. Short of airlifting the products in by a helicopter, I can't change the way that we get people and goods and services into our development. What I can offer is traffic calming ideas. We've always liked that idea. Working with the town for stop signs, for speed bumps. I think that those are things that we should be addressing together and looking at and figuring out what makes sense to slow people coming into the community and then slowing them when they're in the community for ourselves as well.
So you are willing to work with the town if Ricky sees something and we find a traffic issue to work with the town to try to slow traffic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Would prefer it. Yeah.
With the question I have is, I know the Easterly Road, that's dirt road, you're not going to pave it right, I understand that. But it'll be accessible from the start of construction and people can come and go both directions?
Absolutely.
They may not
It is
choose to, but
used
they
as
can.
public thoroughfare now.
Okay.
The community goes across it, we go across it, construction goes across it. It's a compacted gravel base road that is still owned by the developer and to this point is still paid for by the developer. And that includes fixing it after storms or fixing ruts or adding additional gravel to make sure it's safe and secure. And it's plenty wide for 2 cars, 2 dump trucks for that matter.
Board have further questions for the project? Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
time for our discussion?
So I guess
So now I can close, or you want?
if you're ready to close, unless you have more questions for
Okay, so
me.
this time we will close it to public comments. And we will discuss it amongst ourselves. Does the board have questions amongst ourselves, concerns? I mean, we've heard from the public. I think the developer has answered and is willing to work with us for the roads. Sounds like he is doing a eco-friendly building construction.
I do hear the concern from the one gentleman, that he wanted a much more rural, and this feels like bringing in Jersey.
I'm from Jersey.
So I can hear that concern. I don't know that we have a,
We don't have a cure for that.
right.
No, I get that. I get.
Valid concern.
I mean, we can't sell a property and you can't build.
I
He
would
has to
like,
follow our rules.
I would like to have seen a DOT, report on it, but I understand the
It's not required.
thousand trip rule. Sound like playing basketball.
I mean,
Uh,
I have to say, I believe this sounds like it's better than some of the ones we reviewed. They're willing to work with the town. They're
Mhm.
working to be green. They're working to build nice looking things and not just shoving it down our throat. So
They're keeping a lot of green space.
Yes.
They're trying to keep as much green space as possible.
They're working to stay within what I think of as the mission of all of it and how it came to existence.
and I know no one in this room may feel that these are affordable housing, but from what I heard tonight, compared to the rest of all of that, these are more affordable.
Yeah.
Um,
So that can come up with the town council. They'll always talk about affordable housing. And that's something that the town, we need.
Yeah.
Because we got workers that can't even live here in the area because they can't afford the housing. So I can understand the construction side of it and the way things are going up. That's why I was looking for ways to try to get around these stupid ass, pardon me, tariffs that's coming up.
And maybe someday, like New Jersey, we do
In
have
about
affordable
3.5
housing.
years, they'll be gone, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't like working on boards with the Mount Laurel decisions, but we did have affordable housing, but we don't have it down here. So until that day happens, we cannot force that issue. It's required up there. Anything other questions, concerns? All right, so with no other questions, concerns, hearing everybody, do we have a motion in either direction from anyone?
So, like I mentioned, there's the modifications. And then staff had supported that. So this is modification of the master plan, really, based on the Exhibit D. And then here's a suggested motion if you're looking to approve it.
Anybody?
And we had no more conditions that we added, correct?
No, I don't think so.
I
no.
think since they seem to be willing to work with us on doing a whole bunch of different stuff, is dark sky compliant. I don't think we have any more.
I do sympathize with the gentleman about the conditions of the traffic. What they did to Marymount Avenue out there, and they made it 2 lanes, and we fight that every day now, so.
That's Asheville.
When you're going downtown, it's tough to get there.
That's DOT. I mean, they make that call.
Okay.
So, yes, I've got a motion to make.
Okay, let's hear it.
I move to approve the conditional zoning of 77.5 acres as shown on exhibits A, B.
Back.
I got it straight for you, Scott, I got it. You're down.
11.25 acres.
That's not tonight.
Yeah,
Say that next
wrong one. I like reading it closer. I'm at that age. I can't help
You want me
it.
to blow it up bigger for you?
It is in here if you want to see it. I think it is.
I move to approve the conditional zoning of 11.25 acres as shown on exhibits A and E from Mountain Village to Mount MV to Mountain Village Conditional Zone, MVCZ, subject to the conditions identified in the Exhibit D project conditions, and find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the Woodfin Together Comprehensive Plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request, one, uses green and sustainable principles with distinct and human scale architectural design while forming complete communities. Two, uses the future land use map to guide development decisions and connect existing and future activity centers with multimodal transportation for all users. Three, extends or improves infrastructure needed to support residents and sustainable growth while promoting long-term fiscal responsibility by growth in areas with existing services. Four, balances the supply of land for housing and employment and protects land for economic development. And five, protects environmentally sensitive areas such as floodplains, wetlands, steep slopes, and areas adjacent to streams and creeks, while also encouraging accessibility to green spaces.
That's the last one. That's all. That's all.
Do I have a second? Okay, so we will pull the board. Mr. Hanson,
Approve.
Mr. Hopkins,
Approve.
Mr. Vihan, Mr. Young,
Approve.
Mr. Hayes, approved. Congratulations, it was approved unanimously.
So this one, I believe, is tentatively scheduled for the April 15th Town Council meeting. So everybody that's in attendance, let you know, Marie and I are going to be sending out the next round of notifications for all the property. I think, Marie, you've got, keep nodding, and she's going to show kind of like dot out the area of the rezoning a little bit more clearly on the next round, but you'll be getting another mailing and we'll be reposting the sign that's at near the pickleball court and at the end of May Apple Bridge at the end of the paved road. So we'll be updating those signs this week. So just be on the lookout for the letter and the updated stuff next week for the board packets and stuff. It'll be Tuesday, April 15th, 2 weeks from tonight, Town Council. That meeting starts at 5 p.m. And that's the actual body that has to do approval. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at planning. Marie or I can answer any questions about conditions or the site plan. All right. And so just as this one, that's continued until May 6th. And that is the last thing we have for tonight. So,
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Motion adjourned. Jerry, hang on one second because you may have to sign something here.